Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to go over the N400 interview documents. These are the documents to bring with you to your N400 interview for U.S. citizenship. All right, the documents to bring with you to your Form N400 interview. Number 1, your permanent resident card. Please also bring your state-issued identification. Bring a valid state-issued identification, such as a driver's license. Please bring your passports and travel documents. Bring valid and expired passports, as well as any travel documents issued by USCIS. Also bring evidence of your current legal marital status. Bring the original of all marriage certificates, divorce or annulment decrees, death certificates, and other official records to confirm your marital history and your current legal marital status. Okay, number 5, bring evidence of the termination of your spouse's prior marriage. So not only yours if you've been married before, but you also need to bring the original of your current spouse's divorce certificate, if there is one. If your spouse is widowed, bring the original of his or her former spouse's death certificate. If neither of these are available, bring any other evidence that indicates the termination of your spouse's marriage for consideration. Name changes. If you have changed your name at any time, bring the documents that legally changed your name, such as a marriage certificate, divorce decree, name change petition, or other official record if you ever changed your name. Okay, other documents. Now, depending on the circumstances, you should bring certain documents to your interview. You may also have submitted copies of these documents with your application, again, depending on your circumstances. So, for example, you are the spouse of a U.S. citizen. Bring the following items to your interview if you are applying for naturalization on the basis of your marriage to a U.S. citizen. You need to bring evidence that your spouse has been a U.S. citizen for at least 3 years at the time you file your Form N400. Such evidence may include a birth certificate if your spouse never lost U.S. citizenship since birth, a certificate of naturalization, certificate of citizenship, or Form FS 240, Report of Birth Abroad of a Citizen of the United States of America. Evidence of the termination of all your prior marriages, and evidence that you and your spouse have lived in marital union for at least 3 years at the time you file your Form N400. So such evidence there may include a joint bank and credit card statements, leases or mortgages, birth certificates of children, insurance policies, and the IRS certified copies of the income tax forms that you and your spouse filed for the past 3 years, or an IRS tax return transcript for the last 3 years. All right, so now if you are a spouse of a U.S. citizen who is regularly stationed abroad, you're going to need to bring evidence demonstrating your U.S. citizen spouse's qualifying employment abroad if you are filing under Section 319B. And such evidence may include the employer name and nature of the employer's business, the nature of the work of the U.S. citizen spouse that they're performing, documentation to establish the employing entity is owned in the whole or in part by the U.S. interests, and documentation to establish the employing entity is engaged in whole or in part in the development of the foreign trade and U.S. commerce. Okay, in addition, you can bring the following: your U.S. citizen spouse's travel orders, which include your name as a spouse. Documentation to establish your spouse's employment abroad is scheduled to last for at least 1 year from the date you filed Form N400. And a written statement of your intent to reside abroad with your spouse and to live in the United States immediately after your spouse's employment abroad ends. Okay, so next, children and support of dependents. You need to bring evidence that all of the children listed on your form N400 are your children. Such evidence may include birth certificates for all your children you claim, or a court order naming you as the parent, or final adoption certificates or decrees for all children you have legally adopted. In addition, if you have dependent children living apart from you, bring evidence that you support each dependent child and that you have complied with child support obligations. Bring photocopies of the court or government order and evidence you have complied with the order if a court has ordered you to provide financial support for a spouse, ex-spouse, or children. Such evidence may include canceled checks or money order receipts, a court or agency document showing child support payments, evidence of wage garnishes, or a notarized letter from the parent or guardian who cares for your children. Next up is tax returns and overdue taxes. You want to bring photocopies of income tax returns that you filed with the IRS for the past 5 years or 3 years if filing for naturalization on the basis of marriage to a U.S. citizen. Tax returns are not required in every case. However, USCIS strongly encourages you to bring your tax returns, especially if you are filing based on marriage to a U.S. citizen or have traveled outside the United States for a period that lasted 6 months or more. You can request copies of federal tax documents at your local IRS office or irs.gov. You may also bring an original IRS tax transcript listing tax information for the past 5 years, again 3 years, if filing on the basis of marriage to a U.S. citizen. To obtain a free IRS tax transcript, visit irs.gov, select Tools, and then select Order a Return or Account Transcript. For assistance, you can also call the IRS at 1-800-908-9946. Now, if you have any federal, state, or local taxes that are overdue, please bring a signed agreement from the IRS, state, or local tax office showing you have filed a tax return and arranged to pay the taxes you owe. Also, documentation from the IRS, state, or local tax office showing the current status of your repayment program. Okay. Next up, we have trips outside the United States. Please bring evidence that you maintained your continuous residence in the United States if you have taken any trips outside the United States that lasted more than 6 months but less than 1 year. You may submit documentation which includes, but is not limited to, evidence that during the absence you did not terminate your employment in the United States or work overseas, your immediate family remained in the United States, or you retained full access to your place of residence in the United States. For example, an IRS tax return transcript or an IRS certified tax return listing tax information relevant to your absence for the last 5 years or 3 years if you are applying on the basis of marriage to a U.S. citizen. Rent or mortgage payments and pay statements. Bank, credit card, and loan statements showing regular transactions. Proof of car registration and insurance. A photocopy of your passport showing entry and exit stamps, or any other documentation that shows you have not abandoned your residence in the United States. All right, next up we have Selective Service Registration. If you are a man between 18 and 26 years of age, you need to provide proof of your registration with the Selective Service. If you are 26 years of age or older, you need to provide proof that you registered with the Selective Service when you were required to do so between ages 18 and 26 years of age if you were a permanent resident. If you were required to register and did not, please provide a typed or printed statement explaining why you did not register and provide a status information letter from the Selective Service. You can get your for more information about Selective Service Registration or how to get proof that you registered, you can visit sss.gov or call 1-888-655-1825. That's where you can also get a status information letter if you need that. Again, remember, not all of these things are for everyone. This all only depends on your specific circumstances. Now, arrests and convictions. Again, depending on your circumstances. If you have ever been arrested or detained anywhere in the world by any law enforcement officer for any reason, and no charges were filed, you still need to bring an original or court-certified arrest report and an official certified statement from the arresting agency or applicable court confirming that no charges were filed. Now, if you have ever been arrested or detained anywhere in the world by any law enforcement officer for any reason, and charges were filed, please bring a certified photocopies of all arrest reports, charging documents, court dispositions, sentencing reports, and any other relevant documents. You may include any additional evidence in your favor concerning the circumstances of your arrests or convictions that you would like USCIS to consider. If you were placed on probation, you must provide evidence to show that you completed your probationary sentence. Now, if you have ever been convicted or placed in an alternative sentencing program, such as diversion, or a rehabilitative program, such as a drug treatment or community service program, please bring an original or court-certified sentencing record for each incident, and evidence that you completed your sentence, such as a probation record, parole record, or evidence that you completed an alternative sentencing program or rehabilitative program. Copies must be certified by the issuing agency. All right, now, if you have ever had any arrest or conviction vacated, set aside, sealed, expunged, or otherwise removed from your record, you need to still bring an original or court certified court order vacating, setting aside, sealing, expunging, or otherwise removing the arrest or conviction from your record, or an original statement from the court that no record exists of your arrest or conviction. Now, this is very important. Please note, you must provide the documentation, even if someone, including a judge, law enforcement officer, or attorney, told you that you no longer have a record or told you that you do not have to disclose the information. You must still provide the documentation. Please bring it with you. Okay, so for traffic incidents, we get this question a lot. For traffic incidents, you must submit documentation for traffic incidents if the incident involved alcohol or drugs. if the incident led to an arrest, or if the incident seriously injured another person. You do not need to submit documentation for traffic fines or incidents that did not involve an arrest or did not involve drugs or alcohol if the only penalty was a fine of less than $500 or points on your driving record. So you can go ahead and write down traffic tickets, but you do not have to submit any documentation for small fines. Also, no, you do not have to worry about the red light, the camera tickets, because those go to the license plate owner and not necessarily the person driving the car. All right. So for more information, please go to uscis.gov/N400. That's uscis.gov/N-400 and click on Instructions for Form N400. Starting on page 10, you will see the documents that you needed to submit, the required documents you needed to submit with your N400. And then starting on page 11, you will see the documents that you should bring with you to your interview. Okay, I hope this was helpful. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.